And under the abuse of discretion test, you're asking, did they make the decision because of these findings? Does it make sense, the logical conclusion of all of their findings added up to this ultimate decision? The finding doesn't need to be the only possible finding, or the decision doesn't need to be the only possible decision reachable based on these findings. They'll ask whether a logical person or a reasonable person could reach the same conclusion based on the same evidence. If logic could lead a reasonable person to reach the same conclusion based on that evidence, then the decision is valid and not an abuse of discretion. So, one last slide. Again, it's important to circle back and consider the reason why we have findings. Again, you want to show the public that the town has made a careful, reasoned, and equitable decision. You want to notify the person being affected by the decision of the reasons for the decision so they can understand why it's being applied to them and maybe challenge it if need be. You need to create a clear record for reviewing courts, or for your own benefit too later on when you are trying to figure out why we made a finding or a decision a year ago. Helps you understand why. And it also helps to dissuade potential litigation or future challenges to town actions by showing the steps you took, the reasoned decision-making that led you to reach a decision. So, I'm done talking.
That was the fastest description I have ever heard of findings.
I tend to talk
like
fast.
A fire hose.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm sure that was your instructions. I mean, I've been to whole classes over findings, and it's a hard place for non-legal brains to go. But I think the best point for a layperson to understand is that when we get you, then you mentioned in one of your slides was, we're making this motion today to approve this project because, and you have to explain how it did or didn't meet all the reasons to meet the code or not meet the code. And then we are allowed to question, the staff does a great job of presenting the code and then writing a finding that says how it meets that code. But as the board, we're allowed to question those findings and also disagree with those findings and, if need be, revise those findings, correct? Okay.
Right, absolutely. It's
So
your
we
authority.
shouldn't be afraid, anybody up here, of questioning them.
Yeah,
and
you want to feel
making
comfortable with the findings you're making.
adjustments to them. Okay. The 50-foot rule, where you said there's a 50-foot setback in this town, and this one property has hills and valleys and forests and trees. So all those decisions there to grant the variance that you listed as examples, the circumstances were not caused by the property, and the 50-foot rule prevents him from developing. All those things are legitimate reasons to make that special finding, but we don't have to, right? I mean, we can say, okay, every other piece of property in town is flat. Every other house is at least 50 feet back from the street. This one person bought this one property that's not suitable for a house, even though, I mean, you can say, I don't agree with any of those findings and not grant the variance or the exception.
Yeah, you will always have the authority to deny something. These are just the findings you need to make in order
Right.
to approve.
Right.
Right.
But you don't have to look at just because somebody brought it, just because the staff did their darndest to try and fit it into those exceptions. We don't have to agree.
Correct.
Okay, good. I want to make sure everybody understood that. Variance and exceptions, can you run through that? I always
Let me
get a
pull
little
up
hung
this
there.
exact, there's a definition of it in your code. 1 second. Okay, so a variance is granted to waive or modify a development regulation. Examples, well, you can't use a variance to change allowed uses, maximum residential density, or floor area ratio regulations. Exceptions are for setback requirements, for residential auxiliary structures, for limits on the number of allowed structures in residential districts that exceed 1 story, and for the strict application of the sign provisions. So you'll want to look at 17208 governs exceptions, 17204 governs variances. It's kind of silly. They're just slightly cabined in different ways.
Those are, I mean, the staff does a great job of weeding all that stuff out, but most of the stuff that comes to us over all the years fall in that variance and exception sort of window. Somebody, despite everything you've done, they still want to bring it to the board to say, yeah, but. And so that's mostly what we see. So that was.
Yeah. By the time it reaches you, it'll have been siphoned into its proper terminology.
Yes. Yes. Legislative was a slide that you had. And are we actually, I think, yeah, that one. Are we ever in a position to create new rules? We can, a lot of things we do are precedent setting, which is something that I'm always kind of a stickler on. But do we actually do new rules here? I mean, not in a decision findings-based way. I mean, you may bring new rules to us for approval, but we never make a new rule by a finding, do we?
Well, if I understand the question correctly,
I'm not sure
again,
I do.
you're making a recommendation to the town council
Okay.
on, let's say,
Okay.
a zoning ordinance amendment.
Okay,
And
so
then
something
again-
that you're bringing to us
Correct.
to make a new rule.
Correct.
Yeah, not just how we're writing our findings per se.
No.
Okay, that makes sense. And then sometimes when we're reviewing for things and all the code and the findings are set out, many of the times, I don't know if it's just our code, all of the findings have to be made.
Correct. Depending on the application types, and again, with a specific application, it may have a couple of different applications associated with it. So you have to be able to make each of those findings associated with the application type.
Right. So I think just the juxt of my comments are all that, although it's really easy to blow through the part with the findings because it's all done and you guys have all thought it out so well, it's like the most important part of the projects that being brought to us, not just do we like adding this to the town or we do like the house that they're going to put on that lot, is can we actually make all of those findings that the staff has laid out for us. Right. And that's really important. Part of our job of being on the board, not just to watch the project in front of us, but to read and understand and think about how we approve those and what they mean to the town in the long run.
Right. And with that in mind, it may always be good practice, too, to ask staff questions ahead of time before you sit here.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
So you can understand what they mean by their explanations.
Yes. Yes. That is really important. Okay. I always have questions, comments, sorry. Okay. Anybody else? Kenneth?
Mine's just a quick question about the availability of getting what you just put up there on all the slides, if you will. Like, I think that would be a really great read.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot to absorb. And I think the more you have in front of you, it's like, again, well organized, but I think that would be something really great to have in front of you to be able to kind of really go back to kind of ponder about. So an email or something, maybe?
That would be great.
Certainly, yeah.
Be great.
That would be great. Thomas?
No questions, just I'm just glad the staff does what they do so well.
Yes.
Can the public ask a question?
You can
Yeah.
open up to the public.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Would the public like to come up and make a comment?
Yes, the public is coming up. My name is John T. Public, otherwise known as Michael.
Got to make sure the mic's on.
I don't know if this is related to it or not. It's probably just a question for you. I've been wondering why the ZDRB looks at certain things. Title 17 is clearly part of what you look at. But I was wondering, for example, why it was that you reviewed the tree ordinance, or why a change in the tree ordinance that is, or when that comes up, is going to go through you before it goes to the town council.
The tree ordinance is in Title 17, so it's technically considered a zoning ordinance.
Oh.
So our code says zoning ordinances need to go through this
Can you
board.
tell me where it is? Because I couldn't find it.
17.128.
You're very good at that.
Wow. How do you have that all memorized? That's amazing.
Not all memorized.
We're all very impressed.
Yes. But we shouldn't be afraid of the findings or having to just accept them the way they're brought to us, although you guys know much more about what you're doing. But it's always good to ask questions, and if you can, ask questions of staff before a meeting, so that we're not ambushing them during the meeting. That was good. Thank you, Mackenzie. Yeah, that would be great to have a copy of that. And all 5 of us obviously should get that.
Yeah, no problem.
Helpful reference point. Wow. Okay. Thank you. Any follow-up comments from you guys, from staff, on all that?
No,
Okay.
again, Mackenzie's done a thorough job, and again, I
Yes.
think by providing you the resolutions, which we've just started recently doing, it again help makes that
Yes.
record more clear as to what's transpired at the meetings.
Yeah, they're a little overwhelming to look at, but once you dig into them paragraph by paragraph, could you maybe highlight? I was wondering if there could be some highlighting that would make it easier. I'll bring it up before the next meeting.
Okay.
Just some way to highlight a little bit different. So here is the code, here is your finding.
I think one of the things that at least I'm used to in other jurisdictions is you put the code in one type of font and then italicize
yeah.
the staff's
Yes.
response. So
Yes.
Yes.
in the future, we can probably do
That's
that. so
really
it's-
helpful.
And I think we have done that in the
I think we
past.
have.
My apologies.
That's okay. I think, because then you get buried in the reading it and thinking this is an ordinance part and this is just the
Yep.
finding part.
We can do that.
Yeah, that would be super. That would be helpful. Thank you. Okay. Any administrative items?
Just a couple of administrative items to let the board know about. There was an administrative approval for a small bump-out addition at the rear of a structure at 1885 Kerrigan Way that we approved. There were a couple of notices of action that were posted, one for 1881 Larkspur for an outdoor kitchen, and also a notice of action was posted for Priest Ranch Kitchen for a master sign plan amendment. The other thing I wanted to let you know in terms of administrative approvals, staff also approved a transfer of use from the former Protea restaurant to the new use at that site, which is the kitchen at Priest Ranch. So those are the administrative approvals since the last ZDRB.
So that's slowly dragging itself towards opening.
Yes.
Slowly. Okay. Staff or board items?
I'll go ahead and go first before the board. Just to kind of recap, last week the council held their first, what they're calling a study session, where they discussed health, safety, and climate matters with the community. Also, the new town arborist, Tony Walcott, was introduced at that meeting. And I would just suggest to the board, when they have an opportunity to go back and view that streaming recording of the meeting, I have to go back and review it myself. And then at the regular session of the council considered the tree ordinance. You may recall at your last meeting, you made a recommendation to the town council to adopt the proposed amendments. So they did make those, adopt that ordinance as recommended by the board. And again, as you may recall, during our discussion when we presented that to the board, that is kind of the first round of amendments to the tree ordinance. And again, with our new town arborist on board, we'll be taking a broader look at the tree ordinance and preservation and be making some revisions in the future. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is on November 7th, the council will be holding their second study session. at 1 o'clock again in the afternoon, just prior to the regular session, and that discussion will be around housing. I think we're still working on the format of that meeting and who will be presenting, but it would be another session for you guys to either attend or to watch that streaming video as well, too.
Director Borba, if you don't mind me interrupting, just adding to her note regarding the next study session, that will be pending if City of Napa Housing Authority is available. I believe our town manager has been trying to reach, but has not been able to confirm the date.
Okay. Thanks.
I just found out with that today. Just so you
Thank you, Eddie. November 7th. It's just prior to the regular meeting in November, the first meeting.
And it was I attended part of the meeting of the study session part, and it was well done, and it was fully attended, and it gave people a good opportunity to come and ask some questions and make some comments about the topics of the day. And so the next one, I think the last one had 3 topics, and this one will just be housing. Mm-hmm. But I hope everybody else thought it was helpful, because I thought it was an interesting way to do it. And it didn't get too far off topic.
Good.
Cool.
All right, that's
Okay.
all I have.
Anybody else have anything? Diane? Nobody? Okay. I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting then.
I'll second that.
All righty. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.